Many of the civil rights movements of the Cold War started in the 1950s, but many of its key moments and events happened in the 1960s. During the gay rights movement, during the Cold War, there were several important people and events. There were three main people and one main event. First, I'll go over the people, and those significant figures were Harvey Milk, Bella Abzug, and Edward I. Koch. Bella Abzug and Edward I. Koch were both Democrats from New York. They were leaders who initiated a project to enact a non-discrimination law to protect people on the basis of sexual orientation. Abzug and Koch introduced the Equality Act of 1974 on May 14th of 1974. It was a sweeping federal bill to ban discrimination against lesbians, gay men, unmarried people, and women in unemployment, housing, and public accommodations. Abzug and Koch's bill stood as the first ever national legislative proposal to end discrimination against lesbians and gay men. Probably the most prominent person in the LGBT civil rights movement was Harvey Milk. He was the first elected gay senator of San Francisco and was shot while delivering a speech defending gay rights. He was born in Woodmere, New York, to a Jewish family. He played football and sang opera in high school, and after high school he joined the U.S. Navy in 1951. He served as the instructor for diving in the San Diego Basin, California during the Korean War. After he was discharged, he went back to New York where he tried several jobs such as working at theaters and schools, and later he became bored with these jobs and went back to San Francisco. Harvey remained quiet about being gay for most of his life, but things started to change for him and he was more open about his sexual orientation towards the end of his time in New York as he befriended a number of gay radicals who lived near him in New York. In San Francisco, he opened a camera shop on Castro Street, where he became popular and started to slowly become an activist for gay rights by talking to some of his customers. Castro Street is said to be the birthplace of the LGBT movement. Once Harvey was elected for a political position, he was able to express his views in more public areas. Harvey served less than a year in public office before his brutal assassination, but his life still profoundly changed a city, his state, a nation, and a global community. Harvey Milk is well known for his travels around the country for debating against anti-gay movements. On to the events that shaped the movement of gay rights. There's one major event. So in 1969, homosexual acts of any kind were illegal throughout the United States. Being gay was one of the worst things anyone could ever be. Being a part of the LGBT community was illegal during the beginning of the 60s until the Stonewall riot. New York's gay community had grown sick of the policemen targeting gay clubs, gay bars, gay organizations, anything that revolved around the LGBT community. On the night of the riot, which was June of 1969, a few workers from the Stonewall Inn were taken out by the police and beaten, and the crowds around the inn were used to seeing this and didn't think much of it. But when 4 members of the LGBT community were attacked, the crowd started to fight back against the police, forcing the police to take cover inside the inn. It is said that this event was the impetus for the Gay Liberation Front, as well as other pro-gay organizations. It is also regarded as one of history's first major protests on behalf of equal rights for homosexuals. The events and people I have talked about, like other sources, have limitations. For example, the Stonewall riot does not inform about other activist acts that were happening around the United States. And although Harvey can give a lot of information about movements in California, his information is limited to only California during his election period, and so with his information, other states' movements are unknown. You can find out more about gay rights during the Cold War if you visit my source of historychannel.com.